Okay, good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming to this session about Twig and Drupal. Let me first, obviously, introduce myself. My name is Javier. I work for this company called Sensio Labs, which is the company that created both Symfony and Twig and many other open source projects, which obviously are the main new technologies behind Drupal 8. About this talk, we won't talk about Twig basics, okay? And we won't either talk about all the low-level technical details of everything we're going to show. But don't worry, because the Twig documentation is really excellent, so all the details are there, so you won't get lost in real life, okay? Okay, Drupal and Twig. Twig has a lot of great features. That's why Drupal choose to use this Twig template engine, like secure, fast, easy to learn, etc. Okay? But to me, the best feature of Twig is that it's very consistent in two ways. The first one is that Twig defines a very, very small set of features, so it's really easy to learn. There are people concerned about, hey, I know PHP and now I need to learn a new template engine, and okay, it's going to be very, very easy to learn. Okay, don't worry. And even if it's a very small set of features, it's enough to create any kind of template of any level of complexity. Okay? And the syntax is very consistent. Since day one, it hasn't changed in any way. Even if they are adding new features continuously, it hasn't changed. Okay? So that's why I think using Twig templates is the best decision Drupal ever made. I know that it sounds like, wow, but I'm really confident about this. Okay? However, if you see all the Twig features, which are a lot, Drupal 8, at least the built-in themes, only use like the 30% or less of the Twig features. Okay? I'm very disappointed looking at the built-in templates. So far, they are not really using all the great features of Twig. And it's sad because Drupal is great, Twig is great. If both work together, they could do really amazing things. Okay? So we're going to see several things related to Twig, a lot of features. So we don't have many time, so let's start. Okay? With the first block, which is accessing variables. Okay? For each block, the first slide will be this one. Why is this important? Why do you have to know this? In this case, you can improve the application performance a lot if you do this. Okay? If you want to output a simple variable like this one, this is a real example from a real Drupal 8 template. Okay? If you output a simple variable, nothing strange happens. It just output the value, and that's all. But if you output a complex variable, which are these ones, which contains that dot, here the Twig magic happens. When you put this in a template, Twig tries to do all of this to get the real value. So links could be a key of a content array, or it could be a method or a property or a getter or an iser. Okay, Twig tries all of this in this order, and the first one that exists is used in the template. Okay, so it's great for the template. You don't have to change the template if the application changes, but obviously, regarding performance, this has some impact. Okay, so especially for Drupal, I mean, your templates are going to be very complex. You are going to access a lot of variables, so this matters, this performance penalty. So Twig provides a solution for this. It's a PHP extension, which it doesn't really do anything else but resolving the variable logic. Okay, all this resolving magic stuff is done in the PHP extension. So you can get, just by installing the PHP extension, just at least 15% performance increase in your website or your application. Okay? So you should really install this PHP extension. And the last thing about variables is that some of the Drupal variables are wrongly named, like the markup here. If you put that in Twig, it's not going to work, okay, because of that character. So you'll see in a lot of Drupal templates this alternative way of doing things. Okay, but the natural thing is using the dot. That's the way to do. But sometimes you can do that in Drupal. Okay. Okay. Defensive programming. This block is about since sooner or later errors will happen in your application, in your website. What really matters is what you do with that error happens. How do you recover from that situation? Okay. So we're going to see several techniques, tips, tricks. Okay. First one is dealing with empty or undefined variables. There are a lot of different ways of dealing with this. I recommend using these two methods. The first one, if, and the name of the variable, checks if the variable is not null, okay, not empty for a string or array, not empty, and no zero for numbers. Okay. However, be careful because it only works if the variable is defined. If that variable doesn't exist in the template, you are going to get an error. Okay. In the second case, this one, the default filter, this is always going to work. It doesn't matter if the variable is empty, it doesn't exist, it's not defined. It doesn't matter. It's always going to work. Okay? So you can combine both like this, and this is always going to work, no matter what about the variable. Okay? And in case you don't know if a variable is defined or not, in Drupal 8, this problem should not happen. That's why I put that in the slide. But just in case, if you need to check if the variable really exists or not, you should use this check, okay, if variable is defined. Of course, there are other specific checks like it's null, it's empty, or whatever. Okay. Okay. Second technique, for empty collections, if you have an empty array of elements, you can take care of that. With this one, which obviously in regular PHP it doesn't exist, but here in Twig you can use the for else, which is really, really convenient. Okay? And you can even filter wrong elements or elements you don't want to output in the loop, okay, with the if clause. So in PHP you have the for each, do, while, whatever. Here you only have the for, but you have the for else and the for if else. Okay. Now, avoiding missing templates. When you use the include instruction to include any fragment of Twig, this is usually going to work. I mean, this is a regular template. It's probably defined in your theme, the menu.twig template. So this is going to work always. However, if you do this, if you try to include dynamic templates, this is probably in some cases not going to work because that name is dynamic, is variable, so probably the template, the final template doesn't exist sometimes. Okay. So there are two ways to avoid these problems. The first one, in the include instruction, you can provide a collection of templates, and they act as fallback. Twig tries to load the first one. If it doesn't exist, tries the second one, the third one, and obviously if none of these exists, an error happens. Okay? But the first one that exists is included. Okay. The other technique, sometimes you cannot really provide fallback templates. Okay? So you can, instead of letting that error happening and the user getting a bad experience, seeing an error in your website, you can ignore the missing template. Maybe the user see a blank section in the web page or something like that, but it's better than an actual error. Okay? So you can do this. You can tell Twig, hey, if this template doesn't exist, ignore the error. Don't include anything. Okay? Don't trigger an error. Okay, now, filters. This is the list of filters defined by Drupal 8 so far. It's not released yet, so we don't really know the final list. But so far, this is the list of filters provided by Drupal. However, being such a complex project and long-standing project is going to be alive for years, Drupal, probably they add and remove some of these filters. The problem is that if they remove the filter, your themes, your templates will break. So recently, Twig has added this new feature. When you create a filter, you can define your own filters for your own themes. you can say, hey, this filter is now deprecated, and the new one you should use instead of this one is another one. Okay? This is the way to do those breaks in your applications and in your themes. Okay? This is the right way to do things. In some applications like Symfony, these kind of errors are logged, and you can see the message. You are using a deprecated filter, please update it as soon as possible, and blah, blah, blah. In Drupal, still, you don't have this information. Okay, but probably when Drupal is finally released, you'll get this log information also. Okay? But for now, you can see this information. Okay, and this check also important if you use a lot of blocks and you do advanced stuff with your templates, you can check if something is a block or not, if it's defined as a block or not. Okay. But this is for a Twig version which hasn't been released yet. Okay. For the next version of Twig, this will be available. Okay. Important because Drupal uses a lot of blocks in the templates. Okay, white spaces. In this block, first I'm going to tell you, please don't care about white spaces. And in the second part, I'm going to say, hey, please care about white spaces in some cases. Okay? So, first, I want you to save time. Okay? This is a tip from being by having made templates for a few years with Twig. Okay? So this is a trick from experience. Okay? So, if you have the following in a Twig template, the output obviously will be this one. Okay? Obviously, because you are really not using any Twig feature. Okay, it's pure HTML code. But if you do this, the output won't be the same. If you take a look, it looks like it's the same, but the output will be this one. Why? Because in the Twig template, there are these white spaces, which are this one, this is the green one, and this is the orange one. Okay, the problem is the orange space, white space, which breaks the alignment of the HTML templates. Okay, that's the problem. In Twig, obviously, you can fix this with two alternatives, with the spaceless or with the dash in the Twig tag. Okay, but my recommendation is, please don't waste your time with this. Trying to fix the HTML white spaces and alignment, and please don't waste your time. Okay? Twig templates should be readable. HTML should not. I mean, you are working with the Twig templates every day, every single day. That's what you're working on. The HTML is going to be sent to the browser, minimized, compressed, and it's going to be a mess. So don't care about the HTML alignment and white space and things like that. Okay? It's not worth it. However, sometimes you need to add, I think you need to add some white spaces. Here, for example, in this real Drupal 8 template, in my opinion, it has a minor problem, which is this one. As you can see, the HTML contents and the Twig contents, they are not separated by a white space. They are absolutely close. Why do they do this? Obviously, because when title attribute is empty, the generated HTML, which is the second one, is absolute perfect HTML code. And in the first case, obviously, it's also correct. My recommendation is to always separate HTML and Twig code with a white space. And I know that if title attribute is empty, you will end up with a white space, with an extra white space. My recommendation, it does not matter at all. This is valid, HTML valid code, it works perfectly, and the Twig template is more readable with that white space. And this case is even more clear. Again, a real Drupal template, and I think this is a real bad practice. As you can see, as always, the HTML, the generated HTML is perfect in both cases, if hide name exists or not. Okay? But here are very, very serious problems. Okay. First, you are hiding HTML things, like the class attribute, inside Twig strings. This is very easy to overlook and to make mistakes. Okay? This is the first bad practice. And the second one is this one. Because we want perfect HTML, we are doing weird things with the white spaces in Twig. This means that if you remove accidentally that white space, all the page design is going to break, and you're going to spend several hours trying to see what the problem is and what the CSS and things like that is not working. It's because of that. If you remove that white space, you break everything. So I recommend you to do like that. This is, in my opinion, the best way to do this. Obviously, when high name doesn't exist, you end up with an empty class attribute, which again, it doesn't matter. It works, it's valid. You can check with the official HTML validator. It's absolute valid code. So please don't mess with white space in Twig, in HTML, etc. Don't waste your time with this, okay? Okay, the next block hopefully will save you a lot of time while developing your templates, your themes, etc. And the first thing I want to tell you is about the Twig configuration. This file, sites/default/service.yml, is the place where you can define the Twig behavior in Drupal. You can change 3 things. We only care right now about this one, debug. If you set it to true, by default it's false, okay? But if you set it to true, Drupal is going to add a lot of debug information in the generated HTML. Let's see an example. This is the real HTML generated by Drupal by default, if you change nothing. But if you set debug to true, you get this. See the difference? It's the same code, but you have a lot more comments, which are these ones. For each block, for each piece of theme of template used by Drupal, you're going to see all the full list of templates that Drupal tried to load before loading the real template used in that page. Okay? So you know exactly which template you should define to override that design of that block, of that page, of that theme. It's very, very easy to know what to do, what template to create or modify. Okay? Another thing that is very important while developing themes is to know which variables, which information is available in your theme, in your pages, in your files. Okay? One great thing that Drupal does is to, as you can see, add a lot of comments describing all the variables passed to the template. Okay, so you always know which variables are in the template. Okay? However, if you want a more dynamic way of doing things, you can use this special function called dump. And if you put that in any template, you get this. All the variables and their contents available in that template. Okay? All the information, all the variables. Obviously, this is too much, doing the dump like that. So probably you need this. Dump only the variables you are interested on. So if you put several names, you only get those variables, which is much better, obviously, while debugging and developing the themes, the templates, etc. Okay. As always, remember that whenever you change both the templates and the configuration, like the Twig configuration, you have to rebuild your cache. You probably do it in your own way, but I can recommend you this project, Drupal Console, which is a great way of controlling your Drupal websites and applications via the command console. Okay, so to rebuild the cache for any project, you just have to execute this, Drupal cache rebuild, or the shortcut, and that's all. Okay. Okay. Okay, the next block is about Skyping, which is very important for to avoid security-related issues. Okay. However, before starting, be careful because Drupal has replaced the default Twig Skyping filter and behavior with their own. So I don't know if when Drupal is finally released will be the same, but for now, this is true. Okay? Okay. One of the best things of Twig, compared with other templating engines, is that it always escapes by default the contents before displaying them. Okay, so you have some HTML content inside a string, and you try to output that string. Maybe you expect it to work it like that, but it does not. It works like this. HTML content is not rendered. It's displayed as it is, okay, by default. Obviously, you can use the raw filter when you are sure that you want to output HTML. You can use that filter to render the real contents, okay? That's obvious. Twig documentation explains well, okay? However, when you have this, some values, some variables, some content inside not HTML but JavaScript, a URL, an HTML attribute, for instance, when you have that, you may have problems. If you're generating an entire JavaScript file with Twig, Twig is smart enough to know that you are using JavaScript, and so it doesn't escape like HTML. It escapes contents for JavaScript. But if you are using like this, putting some JavaScript inside HTML, the escaping may be wrong. Okay? So you can use this filter, the E for escape, obviously, to escape applying different strategies. For instance, I want to escape this value for including it in a URL, it will be the first case, or for including it in a JavaScript code. Okay? There are several strategies, all explained in the documentation, obviously. Okay? But you should be aware of this. Okay? Twig does it right mostly, but probably you need to tweak some things when doing advanced things like JavaScript and stuff like that. Yeah. Sorry? Okay, they are talking about filtering and filters. I guess for Drupal 7 version, you mean? Okay, it had something like that, or okay. But in this case, they are using their own filter called Drupal Escape, which do some changes, and at the end it uses the Twig one. So probably when it's released by Real, the Drupal 8 final version, probably they won't use their own escape filter, but the real one, the Twig one. You mean the escaping filter or in general? The escaping filter, you cannot really configure them because, I mean, if you want to escape for HTML, you cannot configure which characters are problematic or not for HTML. I mean, that's defined and it's like that. You cannot really change. It doesn't make sense for the escape filter. For others, obviously, yes. Okay. You can add new escape filters if you need another encoding for whatever format you are using, but these are the built-in, the default ones. Okay. Okay, about reusing templates. This is obviously going to save you a lot of time and a lot of code, and your themes are going to be great if they reuse a lot of contents, okay? As always, there are a lot of different ways of reusing templates and fragments of templates. This is probably how often are they used, okay? I mean, for real web, for common web applications. I don't know when Drupal is released if this is what it is going to be, okay? So we're going to do a quick recap of each one and recommend you when and when not to use each of them, okay? Extends. It's very common for websites to share a lot of elements between pages. I mean, the header, the footer, the menu, the sidebar, the main style, the CSS styles, the JavaScript libraries. A lot of different elements are exactly the same for all the pages. Like these ones for the official DrupalCon web page, all the pages are the same. Contents obviously change, but all the other things are exactly the same for all pages. So Twig solves this problem like this. It says, hey, you can define a complex, complete template with all the common elements, header, footer, menu, sidebar, whatever, and then all the pages that are exactly like that can define only the contents, only the things that are different from the layout template, for the big, complex template. Okay? And it's really, really easy to do that. The layout is a regular HTML and Twig template, so you can use everything, obviously. And the only thing you have to do is this one. You need to define blocks, which is like holes which other templates can fill with their contents. So you say, I'm opening a hole for the title, because the title will be different from one page to another, obviously. And for the main body content, I'm going to open another hole which other templates will fill in with their contents. And it's like that. The children templates, the templates that use that layout, that extends from that layout, they only have to define the contents for those holes, for those blocks. So you don't have to repeat everything for every page, for every template. Okay? So this obviously is really used a lot to create the layout of the themes of the websites, obviously. Okay. And you can also extend in several levels. Okay, you don't have to have only one layout and then regular pages. You can have one base layout, then 2 or 3 main layouts for different sections, and then pages. And okay, it's very, very cool. Okay, the include function. This is as easy as it looks. You have some code that you are using in a lot of templates. Well, extract that fragment of code, no matter how short or long is it. Extract and save it in another file, and then include that file in the template. And that's all. As easy as it looks. Okay? So to reuse large fragments like sidebars and things like that is really cool, the include function. Macro. This is not really used a lot, and it's a shame because you could really save a lot of time and a lot of code if you use this right. Okay? For instance, if you define complex forms, you probably are using this HTML code and Twig code, okay, to output all the values, etc., for each theme. Okay? This is for the Bootstrap CSS framework, but all the other frameworks are similar. Okay? With a macro, you could do this. See, it's almost the same. The code is exactly the same, but you wrap the code with the macro function. Okay? And it's like a PHP function. You pass some arguments, and that function returns something. In this case, it renders the internal code that you defined there. Okay? So now forms can be as easy as this one. You can say macro, form field, and then only the different things between fields. Okay? The only strange things in this case is this one, import self as macro. You have to import macros before using them, even if they are defined in the template you are using. Okay, it's a bit strange, but it's useful because macros can be defined in a different template. Maybe you use a lot of macros. Well, create one Twig file to store all those macros, and then import those macros in your templates. Okay, that's the idea. Okay. Now, the embed. Again, it's not used a lot, but it's really, really useful, especially for modern websites, which are all of them based on a grid, like the Bootstrap grid. Okay? And as you can see, for instance, in these 2 pages, use the same 3-column grid for that row. Obviously, then one uses the 2-column grid, and the other one, again, the 3-column grid. But at that point, both templates are using exactly the same structure, exactly the same grid. Okay? And you may think, well, with the include function, maybe I can solve this problem. I mean, you create the grid in some file, you include it, and that's... No. You can't do this, because when you include something, you include both the structure, the HTML tags and things like that, and the content of that template. You cannot change the content. So obviously this doesn't work. You may say, okay, include no, but maybe extend. I can create a base template and then extend from it. And it doesn't really work if your pages are very complex and if they use a lot of grids in a single page, a 3-column and then a 2-column and then no columns. And in that case, it doesn't work because you cannot extend at the same time from different pages. You cannot do this. Okay? So the right solution to this problem is this one. You define the code. Again, this is for Bootstrap, but it could be whatever. For the 3-column grid. Okay? And you define three blocks, which are the holes which someone has to fill in with contents. Okay? You define 3 blocks for the columns. And then whenever you need a 3-column grid, you only need to do this. See? Embed. It's not include, it's not extend, it's something different. It's like a combination of both. It includes something that I can change their contents before including them. So it's really advanced for grids, especially, which are, as I said, very, very popular nowadays. Okay. Okay. And the set, which is almost the last one, is really easy to use it, but it's not that common. For instance, imagine that in your page you display the navigation 2 times, at the top of a listing and at the end of that listing. Instead of repeating that code in 2 different parts of the same template, you can do this. You can enclose the common HTML code with a set instruction, and that creates a variable called like that, in this case navigation, and the content of that variable will be all the code enclosed by set. And then you can output like a regular variable. You can output that code as many times as you want. So it's not that used, but it's very useful for cases like this. Okay? And the last one is the use tag, which is really advanced for us, for Drupal themes, so I'm not going to explain it at all. Okay? You can see it, as always, in the documentation, okay, but forget for now about this. Okay, dynamic templates. This is something that you usually don't use for normal websites, normal applications, but since Drupal is so advanced and you can do so many great things, probably sometimes you may need to do this. Okay? That's the reason why we see this. Okay. The first thing about dynamic templates. You can use that function called template from string to do exactly what it looks. It creates a real template from the string code that you pass to it. So you create some string with Twig code inside, and you can create on the fly that template. And obviously you can include it or do whatever you do with a real template. And it even works on extends, embed, and everything. Okay? So this is really, really advanced. Okay? You can do it all in one step like that, include template from string and whatever. And obviously, since it's a regular string, you can manipulate it before creating the template. You can replace things or do whatever you do, but with strings. Okay? So this is really, really advanced. And someone related to this function will be this one, source, which gets the source code of the given template without actually rendering it. So you can get the source of any template, manipulate it, and create on the fly the template and include it again. And I know this is not common. This is something that you usually don't do. But again, Drupal is very advanced. You have very advanced needs. So here are the tools that we provide to you. Okay, a problem with that site customization, I mean, in this case, you have a website with some header, footer, sidebar, whatever, and you let some sections to customize, override some content and design of some part of that page. Like, for instance, Reddit, a lot of subreddits can change the contents and the design of the sidebar, header, etc. Okay, you can do this using Twig, obviously. It's very, very easy to do, but the problem is that when you are rendering templates provided by the user, that's probably a problem, a security issue. Why? Because even if you restrict the kind of people who can actually create those templates, maybe a special set of editors or publishers or special set of users. Even in that case, you cannot really trust anything done by users. Okay? The template, on purpose or not, can break everything and it can be a real disaster. Okay? So Twig provides this cool thing, which is the sandbox, which is a way to run templates usually made by the users, but in a safe way. You can be sure that the application is not going to break or there is not going to be security issues and things like that. Okay? And it's done like this. You can sandbox a template with the tag or the argument, okay? And that template, in this case sidebar.twig, cannot use all the features available in Twig. That template can only use the ones that you define here. These are the details that we don't explain, okay? But you define a wide list of methods, tags, filters, properties that the sandboxes template can access, and anything that is not here won't be available to that template. Okay, so it's a very secure way of including dynamic things or content done by users. Okay, you can strictly control what they can and cannot do in your application. Okay. Okay, this is a very short blog, but it's, I love it because working with dates is not that easy sometimes, and Twig already provides a lot of features. So you can do a lot of things in Twig and forget about PHP. Okay? Like, for instance, something like this, displaying dates in the time zone of the user. It's as easy as it looks. You don't have to transform dates in the PHP code or do whatever you do. No. It's as easy as this. Okay? Or doing dynamic comparisons of dates. You can say, hey, if the event hasn't started, it's done like this. You can buy tickets. If not, you cannot keep buying tickets. You can do this in the template. And when the date arrives, that link won't be displayed again. So you don't have to do strange things in PHP or things like that. Okay? The template can take care of that. And I love this example, the date modify filter. You can do amazing things like this. See, you can say, hey, the early bird ends 15 days before the event starts. You can display that date like that. You don't have to clone the DateTime object in PHP and modify, and you can do it like that, as easy as it looks. Okay. And to end this session, I'm going to do a quick recap of some of other Twig features that, in my opinion, put Twig years ahead of PHP. Okay. Some of them are really, really small, okay? Like this one, for instance, I know it's very small, but it's very, very convenient for collection and arrays. To get the last element of a collection, it's like that, last, obviously. But in PHP, you cannot do this, okay? Or this one, I love it, this test. It starts with, ends with, matches. The template code is very, very expressive and is great. And this is something that you cannot do with PHP. In a lot of programming languages, you have the starts with and ends with function, but it's not available in PHP. In fact, it is rejected by PHP. They propose to add this, and they say, hey, no, we don't like this. Or this one, the in operator. I love it. It's multi-purpose operator. Okay, you can check if some string is contained in some other string, or if some item, variable, string, whatever, is contained in some collection. Okay. Again, this was proposed to PHP, but rejected by PHP internal. They say, no, we don't like the in operator. It's sad because it's very, very expressive way of doing things in templates, especially. Okay. And this one, name parameters. You have this filter, the convert encoding filter. You have two parameters. It's a filter to convert one encoding to another. But my question is, which one is the original char set and which one is the target one? You don't really know. You should check the documentation or the source code. Is the usual needle haystack problem. You don't really know which is the order. In Twig, you don't have this problem because all the attributes, all the arguments, all the parameters of all the filters and functions have a name. So you can use Twig like that. This works perfectly. But you can put the name of the argument, of the parameter, when you use that parameter, when you pass that value. So now it's clearly which one is the origin chart set and which one is the target. It's obviously. And obviously, because you are using the name, you can put those parameters in any order. You can skip any of them. You can do great things that obviously in PHP you cannot. Okay? This has been proposed several times for PHP, but we'll see. In a few years, maybe they'll add this feature. Okay? And it's great when a function, in this case, has a lot of arguments. Because, for instance, in the first one, if you want to change the fourth argument, which is called ignore missing, you have to define the first three arguments. But in Twig, you can do what you see at the bottom. You can just define the argument you need. In this case, ignore missing. So you can avoid setting an empty second parameter and an empty third parameter. Okay? Another quick and cool thing about Twig is this one. Imagine you have an image gallery, very common, and you have several rows, and each row displays 3 images. Well, the HTML code will be something like that, again, for Bootstrap. And maybe, if you are used to the PHP way of doing things, maybe you do it like this, which is not bad at all. I mean, with the cool divisible by filter and all of that. But this is a bit ugly code. I mean, it's the PHP way of doing things. You can do it like that in Twig. Which is using the batch filter, you say Twig, okay, I have a collection of items. I want you to give them to me in groups of 3, or 4, or 5, or 2, or whatever. Then Twig gives you a sub-collection of 3 elements, and you can do whatever you want with those 3 elements. So it's super clean and easy to understand code. Okay. Again, you cannot do this easily, at least, with PHP. Okay. Another thing, another cool thing, the short ternary operator. If you do this in PHP, as you know, or you should probably know, you get an error. This is wrong. This doesn't work. In Twig, you can do this, and obviously it works. Okay. So you have, again, this example about setting a class attribute. Both work, but I obviously recommend the first one. It's more readable, more short, more easy to understand, and obviously it works in Twig, not in PHP. Okay. And almost the last one, this cool filter which combines several PHP functions and which lets you extract elements from a collection or characters from string very easily. As you can see in these examples, you can say it's like a substring, well done, and an array slice, well done. Okay, it's very, very easy and very cool and very easy to understand and to read and to write and to learn this way of doing things. Okay. Again, this is available in lots of programming languages, like Python, for instance, but in PHP you cannot do this. It doesn't work. And this one, probably for each for loop that you use in a template or in the code, you also define an I variable, temporary variable, to get the number, the item number, and things like that. In Twig, this is already done for you. Inside a for loop, you have this special magic variable called loop with all the usual things you need. For instance, give me the number of the item. Loop.index stores that information. And it starts with the number 1, which the way humans count. But if you want the matching way of counting things, you have the index 0 and things like that. So this is already done for you. Use it, and that's it. And this one, the last thing about arguments. We said that you can use named arguments with Twig, which is great, especially when a filter defines a lot of attributes and keeps adding more and more attributes. Okay, you can do like this. So for Twig, it doesn't really matter how many attributes you define, and if you add new ones, it doesn't matter. Okay, the template is going to be still cool. But for PHP, this is the real PHP code you need to define this filter. It's going to be more and more and more complex if you keep adding arguments. Well, you can do this in recent Twig versions. You can do this. Define a filter as variadic, which means I don't mind how many attributes, how many arguments are you going to pass me. Any number is okay, 0 or infinite, I don't care. All of them are going to be stored in some variable, in this case called options, and you can access all of them like that, like an array. So it doesn't matter how many arguments you define or how many you add or remove. Everything is going to work. Okay. This, thankfully, is already available in PHP 7, I mean, not in the current one. Okay. But this variadic thing is the new way of doing things in PHP, and in Twig you can use it today. Okay. So, to sum up, in my opinion, using Twig templates is the best decision Drupal ever made. Okay, I don't know if you agree after this session, but what I think you agree is that Twig templates are safe, modern, consistent, beautiful, and obviously Drupal 8 templates are that too. Okay. So there are already a lot of great Drupal 8 themes already done and available to use, and I'm sure you are going to do great things with Twig if you use all the features that it has. Okay, so nothing more. Thank you. And if you have any question, you can say it aloud and I repeat, or you can use the microphone out there. Any question or comment or whatever.
You teased us at the start of the presentation with the thought that Drupal 8 is only using like 30% of the power of Twig. Can you tell us what it is that you would love to see in Drupal 8.1, or where a sort of 100% usage of Twig?
The main things, in fact, I would like to see everything used by Drupal, because the current templates, if you take a look at them, they are only using like the if clause to see if some variable is defined or not, and the way of outputting variables, like the simple way of outputting variables. They apply some filters sometimes, but they don't really use any filter from Twig. They don't use any advanced embed thing, for instance, to create grids and things like that. The extents is also not used. They use include, but nothing else. So I really cannot describe all the things that I would like to see, because they are almost everything that I saw in this presentation. I mean, they are really not using almost anything. So
okay, thank you.
It's really sad. Okay. Okay. We have another question there. Okay.
About that, what is the level that a Twig template, I mean the level of functionality that we should use there? Because you say Drupal uses only if and other easy tasks. Which is the highest level we could use on a Twig template without having performance issues and such?
Okay. Regarding performance issues, apart from the PHP extension, which can really improve the performance, all Twig templates are cached and transformed into PHP code, into raw PHP code, before executing them. So all the overhead of using not pure PHP to define the templates is gone, because everything is transformed automatically to PHP. So obviously the overhead is going to be more than zero. I mean, using raw PHP is better for performance, but this is very, very small performance impact for for Twig templates. I mean, I don't know for Drupal, but from my experience from Symfony, there are huge websites with hundreds of millions of users and a lot of traffic, and everything works right with Twig. I mean, it's not incredibly slow, or it's not the problem, Twig, for huge Symfony applications. It's not the problem. So you can really use any advanced feature safely. It won't break your application. It won't make it very slow at all.
And something else different. About Angular and other languages, which is the best practice here to escape brackets and other things?
Okay, you can define in Twig the brackets that they use to output things or to do things or to comment things. They are all configurable. I don't know in Drupal which file you have to change to configure that, but you can change the syntax of Twig. Instead of the double curly brace, you can use brackets or parentheses or whatever you want to use for Twig. So it doesn't clash with Angular JS, which is more strict, and you can change Angular. Okay? So in Twig, you can change the syntax. Obviously, don't do it in regular cases, but in these cases with Angular, it may make sense. Okay, any other comment or question? No? Okay, so thank you again. Okay.